Ethan Coleman woke up in a hospital bed, unable to feel his legs. The doctors telling him he'd never walk again after the drunk driver slammed into him at 70 miles per hour. But what he didn't know was that his wife Lauren was already meeting with divorce lawyers, and his best friend Derek had stopped being just a shoulder to cry on. Ethan, a talented architect who just won the biggest contract of his career, a $450 million urban development project, 3 days before the accident left him paralyzed from the waist down, watched his wife's visits become shorter and colder, while Derek's became longer and more intimate with her. Lauren divorced him 6 months after the accident, handing him papers in his rehab center before announcing she was marrying Derek, the man who'd been Ethan's college roommate and business partner. Completely unaware that Ethan's $450 million contract had activated the day she left, and he was about to build an empire from his wheelchair. What happens when a man who lost the use of his legs discovers his wife and best friend saw him as broken, not knowing he'd won the contract that would make him more powerful than they could imagine? What did Ethan do with his $450 million contract that would crush them so completely they'd realize they hadn't just left a disabled man, they'd abandoned a titan? And why would a betrayal so calculated, a divorce so cruel during his darkest hour, lead to consequences so devastating it would destroy everything they thought they'd built together? Ethan Coleman's fingers traced the contract on his lap, the paper heavy with possibility and irony. Architectural Digest had called it the most ambitious urban renewal project in American history. $450 million to redesign downtown Portland, residential towers, commercial spaces, public parks, and a transportation hub that would redefine how cities could integrate accessibility and beauty. He'd pitched it 6 months ago before the accident. They'd called 3 days after a drunk driver turned his BMW into twisted metal and his spine into a collection of fractures that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The contract sat in his lawyer's office, unsigned, while Ethan learned to navigate a world built for people who could walk. Physical therapy consumed his mornings. Phantom pains tortured his nights. Lauren, his wife of 7 years, visited less frequently as weeks passed. Her excuses evolved from traffic was terrible to I had to work late to I need space to process this. Derek visited more. Ethan's best friend since college, his business partner who'd helped to build their architecture firm from a shared apartment to a respected practice. Derek brought coffee and conversation. He helped Ethan with transfers from bed to wheelchair. He stayed late talking about projects, about the future, about how they'd adapt the firm to Ethan's new reality. He was everything a friend should be, present when it mattered most. Except Ethan noticed things. The way Derek's eyes followed Lauren when she left the room. The way Lauren's smile seemed brighter, lighter when Derek arrived. The text messages she'd turn her phone away to read. The perfume she started wearing again. The kind she used to wear on date nights before the accident made her stop seeing Ethan as a husband and start seeing him as a patient. 6 months after the accident, Ethan sat in his wheelchair in the garden of the rehabilitation center, finally strong enough to manage 4 hours without assistance. The spring air carried cherry blossoms and false promises. Lauren arrived alone, her expression set in that professional mask she wore when dealing with difficult clients. "I can't do this anymore," she said without preamble. "No hello. No, how are you feeling?" Just the blade, inserted cleanly between ribs. "I'm filing for divorce." Ethan had known it was coming. Still, hearing it spoken aloud made something crack in his chest that had nothing to do with the accident. "Because I can't walk. Because you're not the man I married." Lauren's voice carried conviction, like she'd practiced this speech. That man was ambitious, active, present. You've become someone who needs constant care. I'm 32 years old, Ethan. I can't spend my life being your nurse. I have nurses, professional ones. You're my wife. I was your wife. Now I need to think about my future, about what I want from life that doesn't involve. She gestured at his wheelchair, unable to say the word disabled, as if not naming it made her less cruel. Ethan's hands gripped his wheels, knuckles white. "There's someone else." It wasn't a question. Lauren's micro-expression, that slight widening of eyes, the quick press of lips, confirmed it before she spoke. "Derek and I have grown close. He's been there through everything. He understands what I'm going through in a way you can't. You're too focused on your own trauma to see how hard this has been on everyone else." The audacity of it stole Ethan's breath. She was reframing her betrayal as his failure to consider her feelings while he learned to catheterize himself and manage pressure sores and fight through agony just to maintain basic dignity. "Derek," Ethan repeated, tasting his best friend's name like poison. "My best friend. The man who stood up at our wedding. The man I trusted with my business, my life, my wife while I was broken in a hospital bed. Don't be dramatic. Nothing happened while you were married. We waited. We're not monsters." 6 months. They'd waited 6 months after his life exploded into disability and pain and loss. How generous. How respectful. "I want the divorce finalized quickly," Lauren continued, pulling papers from her bag. "I've already had my lawyer draw everything up. You keep the firm, I keep the house. We split savings equally. Derek will buy out your share of the partnership. It's all very fair." Ethan took the papers with hands that trembled with rage he couldn't show. He read the terms that would divide 7 years of marriage into asset columns and financial settlements. Nowhere in the documents was there mention of the contract, the $450 million project that would begin the moment he signed his acceptance. Lauren didn't know about it. Derek didn't either. Ethan had kept it quiet after the accident, too focused on survival to celebrate, waiting until he could physically manage the demands of such a massive project. "Derek will buy me out," Ethan said slowly. "For how much?" $200,000. That's half the firm's current value. Very fair. The firm they'd built was worth far more, but Ethan's paralysis had lost them clients who couldn't imagine a wheelchair-bound architect managing their projects. The offer was technically reasonable if you ignored that Ethan's design genius was what made the firm valuable in the first place, and that the Portland contract would transform everything. "I'll sign," Ethan said quietly, "on one condition. Give me 2 weeks to review everything with my own lawyer. Make sure it's all correct." Lauren's relief was visible, her shoulders dropping from their defensive hunch. "Of course, 2 weeks. Thank you for being mature about this, Ethan. I know it's hard, but this is better for both of us." She left without kissing him goodbye, without touching him at all, as if paralysis might be contagious. Ethan sat in the garden until sunset painted the sky in shades of ending, then wheeled himself to the phone in his room and called his lawyer. "Robert, Ethan Coleman, I need you to do 3 things. First, accept the Portland contract on my behalf immediately. Second, set up a new firm in my name only. Third, find me the most aggressive disability rights lawyer in the state. Lauren and Derek are about to discover what they're really losing." Robert's voice carried careful concern. "Ethan, are you sure about this? Revenge won't—" "This isn't revenge," Ethan interrupted. "This is justice. There's a difference. I'll explain when you get here tomorrow. Bring the contract. I'm ready to sign." That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He drafted preliminary designs for the Portland project, his mind sharp despite his body's betrayal. The contract wasn't just money. It was creative control over reshaping a city center with revolutionary accessibility integration. His accident had given him perspective other architects didn't have. He knew exactly where curb cuts should go, how building entrances should flow, what public spaces needed to serve everyone, not just the able-bodied. Lauren had called him broken. She'd looked at his wheelchair and seen limitation. She hadn't seen that his mind was sharper than ever, his vision clearer, his purpose crystallized by suffering into something diamond-hard and unbreakable. Derek visited the next afternoon, his expression somber and calculated to convey appropriate guilt. He wheeled Ethan to the garden again, that same spot where Lauren had delivered her blade, and sat on the bench across from him like a confessor seeking absolution. "I need to explain," Derek began, his voice carrying practiced sincerity. "What's happening with Lauren and me? It wasn't planned. It just evolved. We were both dealing with your situation, trying to be strong, trying to support you. We found comfort in each other." "My situation," Ethan repeated flatly. "You mean my paralysis, my disability?" "Say the words, Derek. Don't hide behind euphemisms." Derek flinched. "Your paralysis. We were dealing with your paralysis and what it meant for all of us. The firm was struggling. Clients were leaving. Lauren was emotionally exhausted. I was trying to hold everything together. We talked late at night about how scared we were, how uncertain the future looked. One night we realized we had feelings for each other. How long? Ethan asked. What? How long after my accident did these feelings start? Days? Weeks? Derek's silence was answer enough. You fell in love with my wife while I was learning to use a catheter, Ethan said, his voice eerily calm. While I was fighting through phantom pains that felt like my legs were being shredded, while I was coming to terms with never walking again, never running, never standing to kiss her. You were there, standing, able-bodied, everything I used to be. Of course she fell for you. You were a mirror showing her what she'd lost. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I'm not angry, Derek. I understand human nature better now than I ever did before. Disability is a filter that reveals who people really are. Lauren showed me she loves ability more than she loves me. You showed me you value opportunity more than you value friendship. Those are just facts. Character revelations, not moral failures. Derek leaned forward, elbows on knees, the picture of earnest concern. I want us to stay friends, business partners. We built something together, and I don't want this situation to destroy that. The buyout offer is generous. You'd have capital to start over, and I'd run the firm. We could still collaborate on projects. Your designs are still valuable, Ethan. You're still talented. Still talented, Ethan echoed. Despite the wheelchair, how magnanimous of you to notice. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You're offering me a participation trophy while you take my firm and my wife. Tell me, Derek, when's the wedding? Derek had the grace to look uncomfortable. We haven't set a date. We're waiting until after the divorce is final. We're trying to do this respectfully. Of course, respectfully stealing another man's life while he's at his most vulnerable. That's the important thing. Good optics. Ethan, sign the buyout papers when the divorce is final, Ethan said. I'll sign too. 2 weeks. Then we're done. No friends, no partners, no connection. You get the firm's current assets. I get to build something new without people who see me as damaged goods. Derek stood, relief and guilt warring on his face. He extended his hand, then realized Ethan couldn't stand to shake it properly. The awkwardness of the moment. Derek standing, Ethan seated, the physical inequality making the gesture impossible, was perfect metaphor for everything broken between them. I hope you find happiness, Derek said finally, his hand dropping. I will, Ethan promised. I absolutely will. After Derek left, Ethan wheeled to Robert's car, and they drove to his lawyer's office downtown. The building had a ramp, accessible bathrooms, wide doorways, all the accommodations that were invisible to most people but crucial to Ethan's new existence. Robert had chosen this office deliberately after the accident, anticipating Ethan would need it. The Portland contract, Robert said, spreading documents across his conference table. $450 million over 5 years. You have complete design control, budget authority, and hiring discretion. It's the opportunity of a lifetime, Ethan, but it's also massive responsibility. Are you sure you're ready to manage something this big while paralyzed? Ethan finished. Say it, Robert. Everyone else is thinking it. While recovering, Robert corrected gently. This will demand everything you have. Long hours, difficult decisions, intense pressure. Your health has to come first. My health will be fine. I've spent 6 months learning to manage my disability. Now I'm going to learn to thrive with it. The Portland project needs someone who understands accessibility intimately, who's lived the frustrations of navigating a world built without considering people like me. I'm uniquely qualified to design something revolutionary. Robert studied him carefully. And Lauren and Derek? We'll discover they bet on the wrong horse. Derek's buying a dying firm for $200,000 while I'm launching a new one with $450 million in contracted work. Lauren's marrying a man who'll struggle to keep our old clients while I'm designing the most talked about urban project in the country. I'm not going to destroy them, Robert. I'm going to succeed so spectacularly that they'll destroy themselves with regret. That's not revenge? No, revenge would be hiring lawyers to make their lives miserable, or sabotaging Derek's firm, or exposing their affair publicly. I'm not doing any of that. I'm building something meaningful that happens to reveal what they threw away. There's a difference. Robert smiled slightly. Your mother would be proud. She always said the best response to people underestimating you was becoming undeniable. Ethan's mother had died 2 years ago, cancer taking her before she could see his success or his accident. But her voice echoed through his decisions. Pragmatic, fierce, focused on building rather than destroying. Let's sign the contract, Ethan said, and let's draft a press release for 2 weeks from now. Acclaimed architect Ethan Coleman launches revolutionary accessible design firm, announces Portland's $450 million urban renewal project. Make sure every architecture publication gets it. Make sure everyone knows what I'm building. And Derek gets to read about it in the trades like everyone else. After he's signed papers selling me out of the firm, he thinks is our shared legacy. They worked through the afternoon, Ethan signing documents that would transform his life. The contract was dense with specifications, timelines, deliverables. The Portland City Council had chosen him over 20 competing firms because his vision integrated accessibility into beauty rather than treating it as afterthought or obligation. They'd seen his designs for public spaces that welcomed everyone, his innovative approaches to transportation and housing. They didn't know he was paralyzed. They'd chosen him on merit before the accident. Now he'd proved that disability hadn't diminished his vision, it had enhanced it. 2 weeks passed. Ethan signed the divorce papers in Robert's office, Lauren arriving with Derek standing protectively behind her. They both looked relieved, eager to finalize what they saw as an escape from obligation. The papers divided their marriage into financial terms, splitting bank accounts and possessions with clinical precision. Thank you for being reasonable, Lauren said as she signed the final page. I know this wasn't easy for you. Nothing's been easy for me, Ethan replied, but I'm learning that easy isn't what builds character. Hardship does. Derek signed the firm buyout next, his signature transferring ownership of Coleman and Brooks Architecture to himself alone. $200,000 changed accounts. Derek looked satisfied, perhaps slightly smug. He'd gotten the firm, the woman, the future he wanted. I hope there are no hard feelings, Derek said. Business is business. Personal is personal. We can keep them separate. Absolutely, Ethan agreed. No hard feelings at all. Just clarity. They left together, Lauren's hand finding Derek's as they walked to the elevator. Ethan watched them go without emotion, already thinking about tomorrow's press release, about the team he was assembling, about the project that would reshape Portland and his career. Robert waited until they were gone. You feel anything? Relief, Ethan said honestly. They've been weights around my neck pretending to be life preservers. Now I can swim. The press release went out at 9 a.m. the next morning. By noon, Ethan's phone was exploding with calls from reporters, former clients, architecture firms wanting to partner. By 3 p.m., Derek called. Ethan let it ring 6 times before answering. Derek. What the hell, Ethan? $450 million? The Portland project? You had that contract the whole time? I won it 3 days before the accident. Forgot to mention it during the 6 months I was learning to manage my paralysis and watching my wife fall in love with my best friend. Must have slipped my mind. You let me buy the firm for $200,000 when you had a $450 million contract? You bought a firm whose main asset was my design reputation. I took my reputation with me. You bought debt, overhead, and a few clients who will leave the moment they hear I've launched a new practice. That seems fair to me. Very fair, actually. To quote your words back to you. Silence on the line, thick with realization. You could have told us, Derek finally said. You could have been honest. Like you were honest about sleeping with my wife? Oh, wait. You technically waited until she filed for divorce, 6 months after my accident. How respectful. How honest. This is vindictive. This is business, Ethan interrupted. Personal is personal. Business is business. You can keep them separate, right? That's what you told me. He hung up before Derek could respond. Lauren called an hour later, her voice shaking. You made us look like fools. I made you look exactly like what you are. People who underestimated a disabled man because you confused physical paralysis with mental limitation. You saw a wheelchair and assumed I was finished. That's on you, not me. We could have worked together on this. The Portland project could have saved the firm you couldn't wait to escape, the firm tied to a husband you called broken. That firm? No, Lauren, you made your choice. You wanted a new life with Derek, free from the burden of my disability. I'm giving you exactly that. You're free. Enjoy it. The media is calling me a gold digger who left you after your accident. Do you know how that looks? I imagine it looks like the truth. You did leave me after my accident, for my best friend, who bought my share of our firm for pennies while I had a $450 million contract. The media is not wrong, Lauren. They're just paying attention. I'm not a gold digger. You're a person who measures love by ability and comfort. When I became unable and uncomfortable, you left. That's fine. That's your choice. But choices have consequences. I'm not going to lie to protect you from the natural results of your decisions. She was crying now, sharp, angry sobs. You're doing this on purpose. You're trying to ruin us. I'm building something, Ethan said calmly. If that ruins you by comparison, that says more about your foundation than my intentions. I need to go, Lauren. I have a design meeting in 20 minutes. Good luck with Derek. I hope he gives you the life you wanted. He disconnected and turned off his phone. The meeting was real. He'd assembled a team of brilliant designers, engineers, and accessibility consultants who understood his vision for Portland. They gathered in his new office space, converted from a warehouse with ceiling-height windows and zero barriers between workspaces. Everything wheelchair accessible, everything designed for collaboration. Over the next year, Ethan poured himself into the Portland project. His designs integrated wheelchair ramps into public art installations, created tactile pathways for the blind that were beautiful enough to enhance rather than detract from aesthetics, positioned seating at varied heights to accommodate different bodies and abilities. The project became a showcase for how accessibility and beauty could coexist, how designing for disability improved experiences for everyone. Media coverage exploded. Architecture journals called it revolutionary. Disability rights organizations celebrated it as validation. Portland citizens watched their city transform into something more inclusive, more thoughtful, more human. Derek's firm struggled. Clients who'd worked with Coleman and Brooks specifically for Ethan's designs left for his new practice. The firm's reputation as derivative, as profiting from Ethan's genius without the genius himself, solidified. Within 6 months, Derek was taking projects he would have rejected as beneath him before. Within a year, he was laying off staff. Lauren's social media presence, once cheerful and curated, went quiet. The narrative of the woman who left her paralyzed husband for his best friend had crystallized in public consciousness. Her old friends distanced themselves. Her family asked uncomfortable questions. Derek, stressed and struggling, became less of the charming partner she'd imagined and more of a daily reminder of everything the choice had cost. Ethan watched none of this. He was too busy building, creating, designing the most important work of his career. He hired talented architects who'd been overlooked because of disability, who brought perspectives that enhanced every project. He dated occasionally, finding connection with people who saw his wheelchair as fact rather than definition. He learned to surf using adaptive equipment, traveled to cities studying their accessibility, lived a full life that proved mobility was mindset as much as physicality. 18 months after the divorce, Ethan received an email from Lauren. No subject line, just a message. I made a mistake. Not about the divorce, you deserve better than someone who couldn't handle the hard times, but about how I handled it, about the timing, about not seeing what you were building while I was focused on what you lost. Derek and I didn't work out. Turns out we didn't actually love each other. We were just both running from different things. I'm sorry for how I treated you. You were right. Disability revealed character. Mine wasn't good enough. Yours was better than I deserved. Ethan read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies came too late to matter. Some revelations, however genuine, didn't require acknowledgement. Lauren had shown him who she was. He'd built a life that didn't need her validation or regret. The Portland project completed on time and under budget. The opening ceremony drew national attention, a celebration of accessible design that felt more like festival than conference. Ethan gave the keynote speech from his wheelchair, talking about how limitation could inspire innovation, how designing for the margins improved the center, how his accident had given him vision other architects couldn't access. "I'm not grateful I'm paralyzed," he said to the crowd of thousands. "I'd walk again if I could. But I am grateful for what adversity revealed, who my real allies were, what I was truly capable of, where my purpose actually lived." Suffering clarifies. It shows you who stays when things get hard. It teaches you that value isn't measured in physical ability, but in vision, persistence, and character. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation, ironic but genuine. Derek attended, Ethan noticed, sitting in the back. He looked older, harder, diminished somehow. After the ceremony, he approached carefully, hesitantly. "Ethan, can we talk?" "We are talking. I mean, really talk. About what happened. I want to apologize." Ethan studied the man who'd been his best friend, seeing clearly now what he'd missed before. Derek had always been ambitious but not creative, connected but not original. He'd needed Ethan's talent to build his reputation. When that talent came with a wheelchair, Derek had taken what he could salvage and run. "I accept your apology," Ethan said simply. Derek blinked, clearly expecting resistance. "You do?" "Yes, because holding on to anger would poison what I'm building. Because you showed me exactly who you were, and I learned from it. Because your betrayal gave me freedom to create something better than we ever could have built together. So yes, I forgive you. But that doesn't mean I trust you. Forgiveness and trust are different things. Could we? Is there any chance we could work together again? Your firm is doing incredible things. I could contribute." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You taught me that some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. I don't need to rebuild what's already been destroyed. I need to keep building what's new. You should do the same. Figure out what you can create without riding someone else's talent. That's my advice. Free of charge." Derek nodded slowly, the weight of consequences visible in his shoulders. "I hope you find happiness, Ethan. Real happiness. You deserve it." "I have," Ethan said. "I've been happy for months now. That's the thing about building your own life. You don't have to hope for happiness. You create it." Derek walked away, and Ethan felt nothing but peace. No triumph, no bitterness. Just the solid satisfaction of knowing he'd built something meaningful from the wreckage of his old life. The Portland Project won awards. The AIA National Honor Award, the Rudy Bruner Award for Urban Excellence, recognition from disability advocacy organizations worldwide. Ethan's firm grew to 50 employees and had a 3-year waitlist for projects. He became the voice for accessible design, the architect who proved that accommodation and excellence were partners, not contradictions. 5 years after the accident, Ethan gave a TED Talk about resilience and design. He talked about the drunk driver who'd stolen his ability to walk, but couldn't steal his ability to create. He talked about betrayal, teaching him that character reveals itself through adversity. He talked about building new life from broken pieces, about finding purpose in limitation, about how the worst moment of his life became the catalyst for the best work of his career. "My wife left me because she saw a wheelchair and thought I was diminished," he told the audience. "My best friend bought my firm for pennies because he thought my value had decreased with my mobility. They weren't wrong to see my disability. They were wrong about what it meant. Paralysis didn't make me less. It made me more focused, more purposeful, more clear about what truly mattered. I didn't crush them with revenge. I crushed their assumptions by building something they couldn't imagine. That's the power of adversity. It doesn't destroy you unless you let it, and I refuse to let it." The video went viral. 15 million views in the first week. Ethan's inbox flooded with messages from people facing their own adversities, their own betrayals, their own moments of feeling broken. He answered what he could, started a foundation for disabled architects, launched a scholarship program for students overcoming physical challenges. Lauren sent a congratulatory email about the TED Talk. Ethan deleted it unread. Some chapters, once closed, deserve to stay closed. He married 3 years later, a woman named Andrea who designed adaptive sports equipment and understood that disability was dimension, not definition. She'd been paralyzed since childhood, navigated the world with confidence and joy, showed Ethan that his accident wasn't ending, but transformation. Their wedding featured ramped access, varied seating heights, sign language interpreters, braille programs. It was beautiful and functional, accessible and elegant. Everything Ethan designed reflected in celebration. Derek sent a gift. Ethan donated it to charity without opening it. Lauren didn't send anything. Her silence was acknowledgement enough. 10 years after the accident, Ethan stood figuratively, always figuratively now, at the pinnacle of his career. His firm had completed projects in 20 cities. His designs influenced building codes nationwide. His advocacy changed how architects thought about access, inclusion, universal design. The drunk driver who'd hit him had served 3 years and written apology letters Ethan read once and filed away. Forgiveness didn't require a relationship. Understanding didn't require reconciliation. He thought sometimes about that moment in the rehab garden, Lauren delivering her blade, Derek offering his Judas hand. How destroyed he'd felt. How certain he was that paralysis had ended everything meaningful in his life. How wrong that certainty had been. His accident had revealed who people really were. It had stripped away comfortable illusions and shown him that Lauren loved comfort more than commitment. Derek valued opportunity more than integrity. Those revelations hurt, but they were gifts disguised as wounds. They freed him to build something real with people who stayed when things got hard. He hadn't crushed Lauren and Derek through cruelty or revenge. He'd crushed their comfortable narrative that leaving him was justified because he was broken. He'd proven, day by day, design by design, that value wasn't measured in ability to walk, but in capacity to create, to persist, to transform limitation into innovation. That was the crushing weight they couldn't escape. The knowledge that they'd had a chance to be part of something extraordinary and had chosen the ordinary instead. They'd gambled that Ethan's disability made him lesser. They'd lost that bet so thoroughly that their own mediocrity became unbearable by comparison. Ethan didn't celebrate their failure. He barely noticed it. He was too busy living the life they'd assumed he couldn't have, full of purpose, love, creation, meaning. He'd learned that crushing people wasn't about destroying them. It was about succeeding so completely that their betrayal became irrelevant. That was the ultimate victory, making them matter so little that their regret was just background noise in a life built on better foundations. He rolled through his office one evening, reviewing designs for a new project in Seattle. Andrea working beside him on adaptive playground equipment that would change how children with disabilities experience play. They worked in comfortable silence, two people who'd transformed their limitations into launch points rather than endings. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I saw your TED Talk. I was the drunk driver who hit you 10 years ago. I've spent every day since trying to become someone worthy of the second chance you gave me by surviving. Thank you for showing that tragedy doesn't have to destroy people. You could have let bitterness consume you. Instead, you built something beautiful. That grace saved my life too." Ethan read it twice, then typed a response. Grace didn't save either of us. We saved ourselves by choosing purpose over bitterness. Keep building. That's all any of us can do. He deleted the number and returned to his designs, to the work that mattered, to the life he'd built from wreckage. Lauren and Derek had crushed themselves under the weight of their own small choices. Ethan had built something too solid to be crushed. A life of meaning, a career of impact, a foundation that couldn't be shaken by betrayal or accident or anything else the world threw at him. That was the real victory, not crushing them, but building something so substantial that their betrayal became a footnote in a much larger story. He looked at Andrea, at his designs, at the evidence of a life well lived despite everything, and he smiled.